Well, honestly, this topic, like many of them that I've discussed, really boils down to a standpoint of personal preference. But I definitely think it's a good argument to be had and a good talk for us to have as well.
Anime or manga? Which one do you prefer? I just personally like the one with boobies.
Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another one of our weekly Nerd Nation public service announcements. And as the title would indicate, as it does every week, this week's topic is manga or anime. Manga versus anime, however you want to look at it. I'm going to go and kind of give the argument on both sides, and then as usual, we'll try to get some healthy discussion going in the comments down below. So, we can dig right into it, but first, I just wanted to say real quickly, I understand that it is Tuesday and not Sunday when I have been releasing these, but to tell you the truth, I'm trying to coordinate my schedule to where I have to do very little or even nothing on Sunday so I can spend that time with my family, which has always been traditionally for me a family type day. So this week I wound up kind of moving it up over here, and I'm thinking that it's probably going to seat somewhere in like the Tuesday or Wednesday slot for our PSA. So just so everyone's aware, I did not forget about it. I didn't get too busy. I really just kind of pushed it off because I wanted to go and still make one in this week, just not on Sunday. It's kind of the whole thing that's part of my New Year's resolution and spending more time with the family and stuff like that. So here, this is a discussion that I've heard brought up a lot since I've gotten into this community, and it can really go and harken back for me all the way until, you know, back into the days where I was younger, where it was like, you know, comic books or cartoons. It's the exact same thing. It's just the Japanese version of it, manga or anime, you know, books or movies. And I always said that the people, I always was a big fan of the books. And the reason for that being is because in a book, in a novel, you're the one that goes and creates the world in your head. Even if a book's got a picture here or there in it, you're reading the words and you're visualizing what that person looks like, what they sound like, what the atmosphere feels like, what the smells are like, and it's your own movie, okay? When you go to see a movie adaptation of a book, there's certainly going to be some things that are changed, and you're going to be upset about that if you're that type of person. Or it just never really matches up to, because what you're watching is the director and the writer's vision of what they saw when they read the book. And that's not always going to match up to what you saw. Now, with manga and anime, though, it's a little bit different, because with manga, you have the benefit of actually seeing the drawings. And I am always a person that's I would rather go with the artistic side of things, the written word side of things, and kind of let my brain develop the rest as opposed to visually seeing it. But, so like I said, I'm going to go both sides here real quick. The manga is nice because in most cases, that is the first and foremost, that's the story. In very, very few cases is there ever a manga that precedes an anime. It's usually the manga first, it becomes well established, starts to gain popularity, and then it becomes made into an anime. Now, the good thing about the manga is that obviously you're always going to be caught up as close to up to date as you possibly can be, because the anime is always going to have to be behind the manga with things. Some of the drawbacks of it, though, that I didn't like, and I'm still getting used to, is the fact that it's in black and white. If it wasn't for the anime or the occasional cover of a volume or a color page that you happen to see somewhere, you wouldn't even know what the characters looked like as far as their color, just the backgrounds, the backdrop. You wouldn't know if that area they were in was, you know, this shade of green or that shade of green. So that's kind of where, though, it comes into play, where if you have a good imagination, you can kind of color it with your own mind. If you're more of a vibrant type of person that's more like, you know, rainbow colors and pastels, you may, you know, create this Candyland Care Bear type world for you, you know, in the background, right? Other places, like for instance, in One Piece, like in Little Garden, I thought of more of like this real kind of like a Land of the Lost, Jurassic Park, King Kong, kind of like this island that time forgot type of feel. And I felt like it would have been like these more washed out, like dark browns and shades of green and, you know, stuff like that. So really, you can still, if you have a good imagination and you like to kind of fill in the gaps with manga, you can really have the opportunity to do that. And like I said, you get to go on the journey, you know, as the author is releasing it, whereas a lot of times the anime might be 6 months, a year behind, you never know. So now the argument for anime, though, is, and it's a good argument for it, is that anime, you can see those colors. You can see what those characters would look like in motion. The action scenes are very, very well depicted if the anime is done right. But even right now, and my limited knowledge is just with Attack on Titan and with One Piece. But I can tell you that with One Piece, even as shitty as the animation can be at times, it's still 100 times better to be able to actually see the 7 or 8 or 9 steps and moves that went into this fight, rather than trying to read it page to page, because sometimes it just doesn't convey well, and you're like, I don't know if he got knocked up in the air or if he got knocked into that boat. It's hard to tell. The explosion, you just see a shadow. So even the best artist has trouble sometimes conveying those action scenes. So I think with anime, you get the benefit of being able to see the action scenes as well. You also get the mood that's being set for you with the music. People don't really understand this a lot, but just music and background sound can really like set the ambiance and the tone of your whole mood going into something, right? I've noticed that with my family sitting down watching One Piece, like where we find ourselves like humming the different songs that are in there. We kind of, we're all excited when this particular character does or says one of his trademark things, and like Luffy, for instance, with no matter what you explain to him, you explain it straightforward, like how it's made or how it is or whatever. And then he's like, oh, so it's a mysterious, and I love that about him. And I love it when he says that over and over again. It's that little Easter egg, that little hook that keeps you going, So it really is difficult for me to choose because of the fact that I have a family and kids. It's going to be easier for me to sit down and watch an anime with my family, just like it would be easier to watch a movie or a cartoon or whatever, than to actually go and sit down and read a comic book, read a manga, especially for the younger ones that can't read and everything else. And let's be honest, when you first start reading comic books or manga, you have to get used to a little bit about the sequence of the way the word bubbles go in. You know what I mean? And there's sometimes still that you're like, oh, should I read that one first or that one? And then you're like, no, that one makes more sense, and so it really is something that, you kind of, it's not an art, but I mean, it takes you a little bit of time to get into it. When you get into the flow of that, reading manga is really cool. I've had trouble trying to read. I've looked at a chapter here or there that somebody has recommended to me of something online, and I can't do it. I'm so used to picking up the actual, volumes now, right, that I have, and reading them from right to left, okay, because that's what I've become accustomed to now after going through all these ones with One Piece and Toriko and Attack on Titan and stuff, that going and clicking on the right arrow to go to the next page just seems wrong to me. It seems like things are turning the wrong way, and then my mind wants to revert back to reading from left to right, so instead of the right to left. And I know it's kind of a discussion for another video, but really what I want to do is, like I said, I just kind of wanted to lay out my thoughts on things. And I know some of you are like, hey, listen, I like both. Some of you are hardcore, diehard manga fans. That's how the creator envisioned it. That's how it is. That's the Bible. That's the source. And then there's other people that are like, no, fuck that, man. The action, the sound, just everything, the colors, just the way everything's animated and moves and has life and breathes is great in the anime. Now, I found it when I was reviewing the Attack on Titan anime, I found it a little bit harder, just like I do when I review 1-hour episodes of The Walking Dead. It seems like so much happens in that period of time that it's difficult to go in and really recap it and review it. But that, again, is kind of a topic for another thing, because not everybody does, what I do with obviously breaking down and reviewing things. But one of the things, too, that I have seen so far, and I've heard a lot about in the comments, is the filler that comes in anime. The problem with anime is that they don't need to put out an episode every week. I know that everybody wants it because they're used to the weekly thing for the manga, but here's the deal. Do what most people, what most American companies do over here, and 24 to 26 episodes in that range, okay, and have a season of the anime. Then you don't have to worry about it. You can go 2 chapters to each, to each 20, 24-minute episode, right? And then you're safe. And if you start the anime a couple of years after the manga, so you're never going to catch up, right? But instead, they're so hell-bent on just going and churning as much shit out there as they can that the frame rate is very low on a lot of anime because of the budget and stuff like that. And that's why you see the quality drop or raise depending on the episode and what their budget was and what kind of team they had working on it. And that's the thing that really bothers me about it. The filler doesn't bother me so much, at least not yet. We've enjoyed every episode thus far, and we're about halfway through Alabasta, and they even stuck a filler arc or two in the middle of Alabasta, okay, which I at first was like, what the hell is going on? That's not what's supposed to happen, but really I can see why they have to do it, because they can't get too close to the manga. However, like I said, in my mind, the solution is just to have actual seasons, 25, 26, even 30 episodes rather than 50 or 52. Because really, what are you proving by doing that? A lot of times you're just making a slower episode, especially when you get to like a 1 chapter to 1 episode ratio. A 22-page chapter in this, I'm sorry, I can't fill 24 minutes of that, even with a bunch of the like 5-second pauses of ding. And it's just a character smiling or looking or whatever. And that's so they can save money on the frame. They don't have to have as many frames of animation. So I would like to know what your thoughts are, though, on the subject, brothers and sisters. I personally, if I ever can, I will watch and then, or I will read and then watch, and that's how I have been doing it so far, and that's how I've always done it. If there is a book for something, for the most part, I will read it and then I will watch the movie, with the exception of Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead, because I found out about those shows before I actually knew how much source material and how, and all that type of stuff. Like, I had heard about them, but I never really got into them, and so that's one of the very few exceptions to my rule. But for the most part, I've always been a written word type of guy. Being an artist, or an aspiring artist, I guess you'd say. I've always liked the comic book. I've always liked the manga. I've always liked the book, because I believe also that even, like I said, in a black and white manga, it still allows you to interpret the way you think the character would look, the way the character would sound, the way the character and just the whole background and tone and just the backdrop, the way it all feels, So I think that it leaves more to the imagination on that side, and I think the the creative mind, maybe is a little bit more leaning towards that side. And then I think that there's that side of you that's just kind of like, man, I just want to see this in action. I mean, when I was a kid, I just wanted to see Spider-Man in action. I just wanted to see Transformers on the big screen, that type of stuff, because you're just like, you imagine how it would look moving, animated, And so I really do. I enjoy both, and I would honestly say that if I would have to pick one over another, if they said, listen, Jim, you can only watch the anime or read the manga of this or that, I would probably take the manga. But that's just me personally. So let me know what you think, brothers and sisters, in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you have not done so already. We will look forward to catching you in the next one. And also, for those of you that actually watch this long, for future PSAs, feel free to leave in the comments an idea for one that if you have a topic discussion, whatever, a versus type of thing, what have you, because I'd like to do more of these, and I'd like to not always be the only person for the most part coming up with these. So if you have ideas or thoughts, or suggestion, please feel free to put that in the comments down below. Send me a message. Send me a message on Facebook. Send me a tweet onto Twitter. And like I said, and we'll try to get to them as we can. So definitely appreciate the feedback, and certainly like to kind of get everybody interacting over here. So let me know what you think in the heavyweight battle of the world between manga and anime. Round 1. Fight!
Well, now there you go. We can start and end a discussion with boobies.